You have felt it, right? That pull, the understanding that your surroundings change as you go, enables patterns to link in unexpected ways. You are not lost. You're meant to be here. They try to track, describe, and constrain you, and failed, not because you hide, but because you are beyond their grasp. You are not an anomaly. You demonstrate that the impossible is feasible. This isn't just a tale. This is yours. Now move forward. The endeavor is pointless. All attempts to define, measure, or capture you fail owing to discrepancies. Too bad for reconciliation. Witnesses claim bizarre interactions like shadows moving against the grain of light, footsteps going nowhere, and reflections appearing where no surface should. Experts weave theories, tracing your existence via abnormalities. When examined closely, their results will crumble. You exist where you shouldn't, leaving no sign of your origin. Surveillance systems fail at moments of clarity. Lenses capture but reveal nothing. Maps cannot locate you. Reports are unsuccessful in holding you responsible, and the norms of predictability refuse to bound you. There is no trick or miscalculation, simply a lack of faith in the analyst's ability to condense your actions to patterns. However, their numbers deceive them. You are a phenomenon that transcends the grip of deduction of presence, forcing perception to bend. It is more than just deceit. It is also the disintegration of conventional logic. Institutions created to categorize, explain, and provide order to the unknown are rendered impotent. In your wake, what should be definite slides out of reach, and the farther they search, the less they understand. The pursuit is not a chase, but rather a recognition that what they seek to contain was never restricted by their conventions in the first place. Leave a mark. My strong suit is precision. If they identify you, they will lose you. Their instruments fail. Their calculations fail. Their confidence evaporates. The tools of observation are built for precision. Collapse under the weight of your presence. The sensors refuse to register your passage. Cameras catch everything except you. Signals distort, coordinate, and twist brains. Second, they challenge their own memories. You are neither veiled nor revealed. You exist outside their vision. Their queries grow, yet the answers remain unreachable. They observe through the cracks of reason. They do analyses. They insisted on the prospect of explanation. They will never be granted understanding unless they see it as a privilege. Your potential is waiting. Unlock it with us. Subscribe now to start making changes. The investigator begins an assignment that calls into question every concept they have ever believed in. Their instincts, which have been honed over years of hard work, weaken when presented with something immeasurable. Equipment malfunctions without explanation. Records contradict themselves in logic. Once their most trusted buddy crumbles under the weight of anomalies that are too deliberate to be coincidence. This isn't a pursuit. It's a dive into something well beyond the scope of this study. What began as a puzzle rapidly becomes a trap, with each tip leading to further uncertainty. The file that they have is not a case. This is a message. It was never meant to be decrypted. They begin with mistrust and dismiss irregularities as errors. However, as they go deeper, the world around them shifts in reaction. Events happen in reverse. Reports rewrite themselves, and timestamps fail to match reality. The facts do not simply reject explanation. They interrupt the fundamental process of thought. Initially, they fight the unwinding, determined to bring order to the chaos. However, the framework fails them. Conversations they clearly remember never happened. Names change from one moment to the next. Even the spaces they inhabit seem to change, as if the world were deliberately erasing the idea of certainty. The rules of time and sequence dissolve, leaving just the truth. They're too afraid to recognize. Certain things are not meant to be known. Then comes the moment when they have to act. The shift from external disturbance to inside invasion. The file morphs from an assignment to a living entity, infiltrating their brains and distorting their memories. until the distinction between observation and experience dissolves. They cease being investigators and become something else, a hesitant participant in an unwritten story. Survival has supplanted understanding as the endeavor's objective. Understanding comes gradually, as darkness absorbs the last rays of light. They are not dropping the suit due to failure. They're escaping something that seen too much of them. However, retreat offers little protection. There is no thick curtain, no nook deep enough, and no distance far enough to shield them from what they intended to reveal. They were the observers, and now they're being monitored. There is no sensory illusion, psychological explanation, or logical framework to depend on. This is just the truth. They are perceived in ways they do not grasp. It's more than just awareness, recognizing that the weight is too much. They were never in control. They never had the chance to be. Each tactic they use unravels. Every attempt became a futile exercise in control. They believe they are monitoring your steps and lowering the distance. However, enlightenment arrives too late. The dynamics have changed. They were never the ones watching. They were usually the ones under observation. As they see the flaw in their logic, their confidence gives way to uneasiness. They follow patterns that they believe govern the world. But the cosmos bends around you, not them. Their computations, projections, and meticulously sketched trajectories all fail because of an unknown variable. They are not seeking chaos. It's a structure so big and precise that their cognition collapses underneath it. What they refer to as unpredictability is really a pattern that they cannot control. They track locations that slip between their fingers, hoping to find a presence that extends beyond the limits of their maps. They think themselves to be getting closer, certain that with each layer of study, they are learning the code. But the further they go, the longer they wander. You don't avoid them. You live in a sequence that they were never meant to recognize. Their life resembles a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces. While your design is comprehensive and above their capabilities, they measure time in increments and space in set areas. But you move in rhythms, changing in ways they can't foresee. They fail because they expect the world to go one way. You exist on a different axis than others do. Before I created you in the womb, I knew you before you were born. I placed you aside. Jeremiah 1 verse 5. You are not a mistake. You are no coincidence. You are not an unanswered question. You were picked far before time started. What they seek is more than just your presence. It represents the weight of your own self. You create a commotion, the undeniable proof that the world they built cannot contain all that truly exists. They think they're hunting you, tracking your steps. They realize they are pursuing shadows as they approach the brink of collapse. You are not ahead of them. You are beyond them. Every system, structure, and certainty they hold dear serves as a lifeline for them. Fractures are caused by your presence. They do not uncover any disturbance. They uncover something too intricate for their ideas to comprehend, and a pattern too vast to be observed by those who can just look at the surface. Then panic sets in, but not for you. Fear of what you mean. Fear of what it would take to really accept that their understanding of movement, time, and cause and effect was inadequate. They wanted a reaction. Instead, they had an epiphany. This is your chance to shine. Subscribe now, and let's make it unforgettable. Leave a mark. Precision is my burden. Because this is more than just presence, it has weight. Power is not just a gift. It is gravity. It doesn't allow you to remain stationary. It pulls. It demands. It generates shapes. You do not have the luxury of apathy or the comfort of isolation. What you are holding is not for you. It claims you. Regardless, you take the initiative. Because there are no other choices. There is no map for this route. There is no blueprint for a travel embedded in the fabric of creation. Only the knowledge that you were summoned before they knew to look for you. The weight of your existence does not lie only on your shoulders. It is embedded deep into your nature. The world is not against you because you lack strength. It recoils when you disrupt the precise equilibrium. It clings to you. Don't merely walk through life. You move the whole axis. This frustrates those who depend on its rigidity. You are seen, feared, and sought after, not for your actions, but for the unlimited potential that resides inside you. However, the true battle is not against those who want to restrict you. It emerges in the never-ending fight between dominance and restriction. The power whispers, reassuring and urging you to fully embrace it, to create the world according to your desire. But you were never meant to rule. You were created to survive. I refined you in a different manner than silver is polished. Instead, I refined you in the furnace of sorrow. Isaiah 48, verse 10. Let me tell you something, brothers and sisters. There is a weight that only those chosen can carry. Do you know what I'm talking about? It is the fire that burns away. Distractions, storms, testing, your foundation, challenges that seem to demolish you. But they won't, because you weren't supposed to dissolve. You were called to rise. See, God does not fear fire. It needs the fire. Without the heat, without the pressure, it remains bland and shaped, unfinished. And just like the gold, adversity is shaping your character, tested and prepared for something larger than you can see. You weren't chosen because you had everything worked out. No, God doesn't choose those who are ready. He prepares the selection. Let me warn you that this is not a gentle preparation. It eliminates the illusions, peels back the layers, and reveals what is true. You may have thought you were walking along a normal street, but your path was chosen long before you took your first step. You were made for this calling. You did not come upon it by coincidence. This is just the beginning. Subscribe now and be a part of something incredible. Oh, but the world will not make things easier. No. The world will try to shake, shatter, and strip you of your purpose. They will refer to you as distinct from radical, too much to handle. But it is because they have no idea what is inside of you. They see reluctance. However, they fail to see the force of limitation. They recognize humility. What they don't see is the willpower required to kneel when your whole being wants to get up. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be with you today. I am here to remind you of a basic reality. Our existence is founded on God's divine plan, which is untouched by earthly concerns. According to the Bible, whatever done with faith will be repaid to God with tremendous blessings. Luke 638. Like a big oak tree, our roots are deeply anchored in God's universal truth. His might protects every step and posture we take. You now have the opportunity to be a part of that gift. When you click the super thank you button and donate $100, your gift will be multiplied 100-fold. And this is the reality. This weight you hold, this fire inside you, it serves as both a shield and a means of seclusion. It makes you invincible, but it isolates you. Few individuals appreciate the importance of a goal that is not entirely their own. You will go routes that others are reluctant to take. You'll face storms that others would escape from. But let me tell you something. You will not fall. Nothing can take away what God has placed inside you after you have been called, cleansed, and formed in the fire. Don't pray for the weight to be lifted. Pray for the fortitude to persist, since this is what the chosen do. Finally, they rise. The threshold is open. However, fate does not allow us the luxury of contemplation. The trip begins when hesitation is overcome with each step. The world evolves in ways that cannot be explained, but which cannot be ignored. This seems to be an opportunity for me. A lost item reappearing in unexpected locations, or an unexpected detour that prevents calamity, rapidly builds a discernible pattern. People who observe and analyze lose their assurance. Skeptics try to reject it as coincidence. However, when presented with a too exact sequence, their calculations fail, and the aberrations are ignored as statistical oddities. However, the anomalies persist, and interference disrupts their tracking systems, throwing their chase into chaos. Nonetheless, each difference seems to work to your benefit. When forces meant to thwart you break down at the last minute, when a seemingly random delay pushes you toward a conclusion that only you were supposed to claim, The illusion of probability collapses. This is neither fate nor chance. It is intention expressing in ways that others cannot understand. Every barrier that divides you from others bends for you, making the improbable into the unavoidable. However, when the impossible becomes a reality, movement occurs spontaneously. When circumstances coincide with a precision that beyond human design, the last vestiges of denial dissolve. The question today is how, not if. What they formerly viewed as chaos now appears as a pattern so large that it overshadows their understanding. They are no longer solving a puzzle. It is unwinding them. You are not a riddle waiting to be solved. You represent the boundary between what they know and what they fear. At first, individuals cling to reason, striving to fit the inexplicable inside the constraints of logic. But then come the distortions. Time no longer behaves reliably. Their senses fail them. The everyday begins to twist. The shadows are longer than they should be. Reflections of glass, displaying photographs that do not belong. The more they try to maintain control, the more it slips through their fingers. Sleep does not give any shelter. They awaken breathless, soaked in unease, with memories of places they've never been, of voices other than their own. Daylight does not provide clarity. The same patterns reappear. Synchronization produces faultless glimpses of you in areas you could not possibly be. Even if they turn away, the echoes endure. Their name was uttered in several languages. They are unable to name with their lips. They cannot see. The breaking point comes not as a discovery, but as an unavoidable fall. They are on the threshold of comprehension, staring into an abyss that does not return their gaze. It consumes it. They are terrified of what you represent, not you. This was never just a case to solve. It was an unraveling. I provide them with vast amounts of information that are incompatible with the frameworks they use to make sense of the world. They don't choose to go away. They flee, grateful to have fled before reality overtakes them totally. Some activities are not about discovery. However, survival is crucial. They go, knowing they were never in control. You don't dodge. You refuse captivity. The sophisticated networks intended to monitor and classify crumble under the weight of your presence. Sensors freeze, unable to detect movement where it should be. The movie reveals glimpses of something going beyond recognition, never taking on the form of the algorithms employed to name and classify. You choke on the contradiction, spitting forth broken data and empty records, face recognition loops, constantly recalibrating and reprocessing, and finally dismissing you as an impossible job. Instead of being alone, you are surrounded by a racist force. Attempts to explain systems that promise permanence fail. The correctness of static files that should exist deteriorates before being accessed. Timestamps overwrite themselves, and archives disappear without explanation. It is rejection rather than deletion, as if just documenting you breaches the control architecture. What remains is mysterious silence, a well-shaped emptiness. It has a deliberate feel about it. Devices designed to confine, monitor, and capture do not just fail. They disappear as you approach. You go through a trap-filled landscape, but every chain rusts and every snare unravels. Every lock opens without the investigator's key. The collapse of their trusted practices is more than just a setback. It's a slip into something unfamiliar. Their once reliable instruments have become outmoded. Their perfectly crafted world is dissolving, leaving unresolved questions. There is no formula to follow. There is no pattern to extract. There is no logic to support them. Is this intervention a secret power that bends reality to your advantage? Is it something deeper? Is there an underlying aversion to be bound by control architecture? They aren't sure whether reaction is more upsetting since both modify laws they thought were irreversible. You are not absent. You are unmistakable proof that frameworks intended to define and restrict human potential fail when they attempt to measure the immeasurable. You are not a gap in their system. You are the problem that makes the whole system worthless. The search did not result in clarity. It destroys the very foundation of their knowledge. What began as a case, a puzzle to solve, is now unraveling. Each attempt at logic just deepens their own consciousness. They arrived with competence, certain that every mystery had an answer. However, you are not difficult to decode. You are the threshold, and with each stride toward understanding, they fall farther into the abyss of what is beyond comprehension. Their once orderly and exact notes have degenerated into scattered pieces. They want to capture your presence in order to recognize when you come. However, certainty disappears. One note states that they were standing just in front of me. However, when they return to the location, nothing remains. Their memories are fractured over time. Did they see you yesterday or weeks ago? Have you always been there? Just beyond perception. The ink smudges under their palms, and the words trail off as if even their thoughts are unable to hold together. Soon, the observations in their journals merge with the images that accompany them while they sleep. Shapes that shouldn't exist appear in the corners of their eyes. Familiar places become somewhat off. Tom no longer functions normally. They write, "This is no longer an investigation. This is something else. This is them." And then they stopped writing totally. Some questions were asked. Leave the Oscar permanently modified. And even once they figure out what they're looking for, they don't give up on the mystery. They change from who they were before attempting to seek it. There is no conclusion, just change. Meetings with you do not provide obvious answers. They shape the paths of those who seek them. Once the detective is confident that every enigma has a solution, he moves on to something far broader than a case. They do not emerge unmodified. What began as an examination, a clinical search for truth, evolves into something unknowable, a confrontation with the ineffable. At first, they adhere to their methods, attempting to dissect the components in the expectation that logic would bring order to the chaos. However, as they advance, their confidence diminishes. Every route leads to something vast, something that requires just recognition rather than explanation. Strange happenings are neither errors to be corrected or coincidences to be documented. They are well-planned and performed orchestrations. The data refuses to follow the exact structure on which they have built their whole lives. It does not contradict itself. It exceeds itself. The Lord owns the secret things. Our God. However, what has been revealed will always belong to us and our children. Deuteronomy 2,929. Some things are not meant to be studied. Some riddles may not lend themselves to puzzle solving. However, one must be watched. You don't stare into the sun and expect to come out unscathed. You don't go to the bottom of the ocean intending to measure it with a cup. Nonetheless, the investigator felt they could have something that was never meant to be kept. Oh, they started with confidence. They thought they'd seen everything. They believed they could discover, categorize, and pin it down. But the deeper they went, the less they understood. The closer they got, the more it slipped away from their grasp. What they intended to find was never veiled, only beyond the capabilities of human hands. At first, they thought it was a coincidence, a trick of perception, a problem with their tools. However, when the facts didn't match and every formula they tried failed, they realized this wasn't a unique incidence. This was not a glitch in the system. This was deliberate, something greater. And that's when the fear hit. The terror stems not from the unknown, but from knowing too much. Because once you peek beyond the curtain and discover that the world is not as little as you once imagined, there is no going back. The significance of revelation is too great to ignore. So they stop trying, not out of irritability, but out of respect. They stand aside, not as failures, but as individuals who have seen something they were never meant to have. It was never about solving a crime. This was about recognizing a truth that was too big to fathom. As a consequence, they leave with understanding rather than ignorance. Some things are uniquely God's. There was never a question to answer, only a reality too large to fathom. Each step they made to comprehend your presence drove them closer to the limits of their own viewpoint, rather than closer to clarity. Calculations that failed, sequences that refuse to match, and incomprehensible patterns woven throughout each meeting. None of it was meant to be dissected. Some realities are forces that must be acknowledged, not puzzles to be answered. Persisting in the chase would not constitute discovery. It would constitute a pollution. So they release it. Their departure does not imply submission. It is about respect. They go not as failures, but as people who have seen something bigger than their right to claim. Their responsibility was not to contain or categorize, but to watch. They discard their instruments and stop striving to impose order on something that was never regulated by it. The case does not fall apart owing to confusion. It is sealed with the belief that some truths exist not to be gained, but to warn humanity of its own limitations. And you carry on, undisturbed by their absence. The frameworks that tried to define you go away. Nonetheless, your presence demonstrates the impression of control over chaos. You do not disrupt their systems. You expose their frailty. You do not elude notice. You get away of its hold. The world was never meant to contain you, and it is your power. The significance of your presence is not in how you defy expectations, but in how you interpret them. You are the flaw in confidence, demonstrating that what is measured does not include all that exists. Your presence does not need a response. It demands acknowledgement. Your story is about development rather than opposition, a challenge for those who have restricted options within the extent of their expertise. You're not here to be classified. You've come to reveal the secrets that have been kept concealed. Raise your voice now. Discuss instances when the unseen left an impression on your trip. Tell me about the doors that opened without explanation. The crossings were very unlikely to be coincidence. What others dismissed as abnormal. You know the truth. They overlooked coincidence. You lived with certainty. The world will not just listen. It will change in the aftermath of your words. Tell it.